Hey everyone, Matron here, bringing you another StarCraft 2 commentary, this time a special game between LiquidTLO spawning as the red Terran, and his opponent spawning as the blue Protoss will be WhiteRa. So two very high-level players meeting on the European ladder, wishing each other good luck, have fun, and this game will be featuring a TVP. A lot of people on my channel were complaining that I've been casting a lot of PvZ recently, so I wanted to bring you a Terran game. But this isn't quite a Terran game, as LiquidTLO has race swapped over to Zerg. He began SC2, playing as random, sort of settled in on as playing Terran for a while, and then he played that for a number of months in all the early tournaments and the beta action. And then, actually in the past few months, he's decided to race swap over to Zerg, along with Maro, two Europeans, making the swap from Terran to Zerg. And I really like Zerg for TLO. I like the style. He definitely plays more of a macro style, but he also can do drops, which I think he took from the Terran play style. And I definitely believe when the players race swap like this, you can't help but take a little bit of each race with you. So we may see a little bit of Zerg play from him as Terran, and I believe that can only make you stronger. I'm really impressed with WhiteRa as well recently. He did take part in the SC Reddit Invitational, and he did quite a nice job making it very deep in that tournament, playing some very impressive games against top-level competition. And in those games, he really favored a pretty safe opening build, usually a 3-gate into expand, just relied on out-macroing his opponent, as we see him placing a pylon here. As a nice spot for a pylon, he's going to be able to see any sort of drop play that the Terran comes in with. Really trying to out-macro his opponent, and he also used Warp Prisms in a way that I'd never really seen in the pro level before. Dropped a lot of Zealots and used them to harass his opponent's economy. And something really impressive, we often see that from Terran and Zerg players with Mutalisks and with dropships filled with Blue Flame Hellions, but hardly ever using Warp Prisms from Protoss. So really like to see what he's going to be able to do in this game against TLO. Also want to see what sort of play TLO has in store for us after coming off that injury. Obviously not able to practice as much as these other top players. Looks like he has gotten that Marine out, so he's going to be able to deny the scout. And WhiteRa, pretty late scout here. It looks like he placed down both of his, or two pylons before sending out that scout. Oftentimes we see that 9 pylon scout where the scout come out right after that gateway, but he's not going to be able to get up into the base of TLO. So TLO coming out with the fast Marauder and the stim pack. That's a very interesting decision, going for the early stim here instead of the concussive shell. Oftentimes in this matchup we see this unit mix of a Marine and a few early Marauders coming out, but with that concussive shell upgrade really allows them to take map control in the early going. Any Zealots or Stalkers which come out onto the map going to be quite difficult to maneuver with those concussive shell Marauders, but going for stim instead. So maybe coming for some sort of early timing attack with small numbers of units. But like Day 9 says, you don't want to finish an upgrade until you absolutely need it. So really question this stim. We'll see what TLO does with it. See that WhiteRa getting out an early robotics facility, and what he wants to do with this is get out observers, a lot of them, to try to scout his opponent's build. He went with that late scout, so he's not able to get too much information. He does have control of the Xel'naga tower, so we will be able to see any army which pushes out. And it looks like TLO coming with a number of Marauders and one Marine at this point, and he's pushing out nice timing here with the stim. He's going to have that stim finished just in time to make it over to his opponent's base, and bringing an SCV as well, so perhaps hoping to get a bunker up at the top of the ramp, or maybe even trying to contain his opponent. So we see WhiteRa adding another gateway and just constantly producing off this one gate. So you can survive if your opponent does not come with early pressure off of one gate, but TLO is going to test that, coming with these Marauders and the SCV, and we'll see what WhiteRa is able to do. He does have an observer out, so soon going to be making his way into the base of his opponent. TLO losing that SCV, so hope to get some high ground sight with that SCV, and a nice force field by WhiteRa there. And now he does have Warp Gate finished, so he's going to be able to get another Sentry and another Force Field. Going to stop any sort of reinforcements coming from TLO. See, TLO had stimmed up this Marauder, hoping to get it into the fight. Now doing a nice job kiting around the Sentry and the Zealot here. The Sentry and the Zealot, both light units, so not taking the bonus damage from Marauders. And now we see the WhiteRa having to pull off a number of probes to try to defend against this. A Stalker in the fight here, and now another Zealot coming in as well, hoping to take out these remaining two Marauders, but a lot of damage done to the early army of WhiteRa. So TLO losing a few units there, but able to take down the units of his opponent. And like QXC says, in this PVZ matchup, or this PVT matchup, in small numbers, the Terran player with the stim really does well against the Protoss player. So QXC likes to try to exchange small numbers of units and really get into small encounters. With that stim, you can have such an advantage with the concussive shell as well, kiting against those zealots. So now TLO is going to have to try to defend against this counter push by WhiteRa. The one thing the robotics facility early on does for him is he's going to be able to get at an immortal. So countering the early marauders of his opponent, and it looks like TLO adding on another 2 racks, all 3 with tech labs. So maybe going for some heavy marauder play, queuing up a little bit here, but he's going to have a lot of marauders in their early going, and against TOS they can be quite powerful. They do very good against those stalkers, the bonus damage against armor, and against zealots with the concussive shell, able to kite. The concussive shell coming up right now, so TLO getting all of his important upgrades. And now we see WhiteRa perhaps pushing out for some sort of counter-offensive. He does have a pylon in position, going to be able to warp in some units. And like I mentioned, playing a nice defensive style and expanding anytime he pushes. So now pushing out, and he's going to accomplish 2 things. He could win the game right here with this push, and if not, he's at least going to have an expansion up and deny his opponent's expansion. We see TLO has gotten up his 2nd orbital command, and he wants to be able to lift this off and drop it at this natural, but he's not going to be able to with WhiteRa stationed out here with all these immortals. TLO sending down a marauder, doing a little bit of scouting. If he's able to take down that probe, it could be very good. That probe could drop another proxy pylon a little bit closer to the base. Now it looks like TLO are going to try to focus down the 1 immortal. It is in range, so getting very low and trying to be focused down by the 1 marauder on the low ground, and now he's finally able to force that down. A nice force field there, but the units on the high ground are going to be able to continue to shoot. So WhiteRa needs to pull back here, get up a few more force fields, splitting these units in half. See a stim going down, trying to focus down this marauder, or this immortal. The marauder's doing a nice job kiting away from the zealots, trying to do as much damage as they can before they go down. That concussive shell combined with the stim just so powerful against zealots. Now we see more and more marauders coming out, but they're not doing a lot of damage to the zealots. And now we see a Hellion coming out, so that's going to help against these light zealots and sentries. Doing a nice job microing this Hellion away from these units along with those marauders. Now pulling off a number of SCVs, trying to get us around on these sentries and these zealots. And again, not a lot of damage being done to TLO at this point. WhiteRa not doing a lot of reinforcing either. It looks like he is not going to be reinforcing off this pylon. He accomplished what he wanted to do with that attack. He was able to get up this expansion. If we check the harvester count, it is 39 to 36. And now both players will soon be getting their expansions up and running. WhiteRa just a little bit early, needs to set a rally point for this Nexus. And going to be worrying about a counteroffensive here. Going to try to macro up best he can, as TLO has quite the advantage army-wise. Check back in the base of TLO. He does have up a starport, and it looks like he's getting out some Hellions, so maybe going for some sort of drop, going to be harassing the economy of his opponent. Doing a nice job with this pit crew, healing up this Hellion. And these medevacs are going to be very powerful now with this early stim on the Marines and Marauders. They're going to be able to stim up whenever they want and be healed up by those all-important medevacs. Looks like we have a 3rd gas coming for TLO, so maybe focusing on some higher tech now. We see he's got a lot of tech labs, so he could go the route of Ghosts. Looks like he's getting a reactor on the starport. So now we'll be going for Vikings, hoping to get some air superiority. Now pushing out with these Hellions. They do not have the blue flame at this point. There are Colossi on the field for WhiteRa. Hellions moving into position on or to this natural. Again, not having that blue flame. It's going to take a number of shots to take down those probes. Looks like they got 4 or 5 probes there. This one Hellion with 5 kills, another with 2. And now we see a drop coming into the main by TLO. Some more harassment going on in the natural as well. This drop in the main containing an SCV, perhaps auto-repairing these units, perhaps trying to get down a bunker maybe. Looks like right now just doing a bit of repair, and it looks like being able to focus down that Colossi, very important in the early going to take down that 1 Colossi. It's going to be very powerful against these Marauders, and again at this point just able to kite those Zealots, and now doing a nice job of TLO picking up all these units, not losing a lot of units there. So we really like this play from TLO so far, as we see more units streaming into the natural. This might have been a miss rally, as those stimmed units trying to get in on the action. A few Marauders being left here, perhaps for a bit of scouting information. WhiteRa does have this tower, so TLO needs to secure that, really cut down on the information and the sight for his opponent. So WhiteRa taking care of these 2 Marauders. So TLO being a little bit cavalier with these units at this point, now pulling back, working on getting up another command center as well as a few more racks. If we check the production tab, looks like he has tanks coming out on the field as well as siege mode. So he knows his opponent mostly going for a ground army with those Immortals and the Colossi. So maybe transitioning to some tanks here. Tanks especially good against those Zealots if they do not have charge. So we see WhiteRa focusing on the Zealots in the early going, trying to take on those Marauders. And now TLO may be doing some sort of tech switch to take advantage of that. A lot of racks being added and some bunkers as well. TLO may feel like he's a little bit vulnerable at this point until he gets all these racks up and going. Adding more tech labs to him, so maybe going for some very, very heavy Marauder play. The Observer of WhiteRa doing his best to get as much information as possible. Now we see Marauders moving into the natural by TLO, and this is just a bit of a distraction as we see a drop coming into the main. He's going to try to stem up and draw the forces of WhiteRa away. We see a force field going down, and now the drop into the main. And TLO is going to want to try to focus down important structures here. If he can take down the robotics bay, he can try to limit the number of Colossi coming out. Instead, it looks like he's going to try to psycap his opponent, taking down these pylons. And again, he's going to be able to kite these Zealots here with the concussive shell, and then he can just pick up in this medevac when he does see these units coming, and then try to get out of there without any losses. So we see this medevac doing its best to get out of there, but a few stalkers here cornering it, and now 1 or 2 more shots going to take down that medevac. So he has to be very careful here, as WhiteRa doing a little bit of camping on this medevac. 3 important Marauders here, and WhiteRa going to have to keep an eye on that, as those Marauders with this stim going to be able to do a lot of damage against those buildings. Now it looks like